Welcome to the Happy Disruptors Podcast. If you're a creative thinker with an unconventional approach to your industry, you just might be a happy disruptor. Join your friends at the Great Outdoors Foundation for honest conversations about tackling critical issues like conservation with an uncritical disposition. If you like to smile and get things done, this is the podcast for you.
Hello, and welcome back to the Happy Disruptors Podcast. I'm Kaitie Hartman.
And I'm Hannah Inman.
And today we are joined by the fabulous Amanda Brown with Polk County Conservation. Amanda, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is wonderful, and I'm excited to talk about water quality.
Yes, excited to have you here. So before we jump in, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you are just an expert in water quality here in Central Iowa.
Yeah, so my current role, I'm an ecologist, water ecologist to be specific, with Polk County Conservation. So do a little bit of everything in our parks, look at water quality, but also water quality is kind of affected by everything. So I do a little bit of everything within our parks. But before that, I also worked on the private side. So I worked with landowners, farmers in Polk County, and we looked at water quality, and we looked at ways they can improve water quality on their land. Really I feel like my personal life also kind of gets into this role as well. I have two kids, and they really drive a lot of what I do, and so it's like, they're our next generation. How can we improve water quality to make it better for them to drink, make it better for them to play in and things like that. So, I do a little bit of everything in my current role, but a lot of it is focused on water quality, of course.
So tell us what inspired you to become a water ecologist.
Yeah. So if I'm being honest, I didn't always want to be this. I wanted to be a vet, actually. So, but I guess that kind of shows that I've always had an interest in science. So always had an interest in how things work, why they're working a certain way, and really always had an interest to kind of, I don't want to say fix things, but look at ways to make things better, I guess. Look for a root cause of something or things like that. So when I was in college, I took a conservation class, just a general kind of conservation class. And I've always loved being outside. And I guess I just didn't really know that you could have a career in it.
Yeah.
And so once I took that class, I was like, oh my gosh, I can do this for a living. Like, I can look outside, I can figure out what's going on in the environment and try to improve it. So that was where it started. And that's kind of where my inspiration came, knowing that I could do it as a career. I think my inspiration or my interest in being outside or helping the environment really started much younger than that, of course. When I was little, I was always outside. We lived out in the country. I was surrounded by ag fields, but I still always questioned kind of like, is this how it's supposed to be? Is this how our world is supposed to look? And that was just kind of the norm. But I felt like there has to be more. What did Iowa look like before? How can we do things like that? Or how can we try to integrate that in our systems nowadays? So that was my inspiration kind of starting young. And then I think when I started taking classes, I saw the ecology aspect. So the ecology aspect really brings in that holistic view of the environment. So you're not just really looking at one thing. Even though I focused a lot on water, I'm not always just looking right at water. I'm looking at the environment as a whole, kind of what's going on in the environment. How are they influencing one another? And then I think the inspiration, or really the reason I wanted to get into water, is because water sustains life. So without water, nothing would be living. We wouldn't have trees. We wouldn't have us. We wouldn't be sitting here. So it's really one of kind of the most important aspects in our environment. And then I think also the water can tell a lot about the health of the environment. So really focusing on water, using that and using the quality of water as a driving point to then make a lot of our decisions. I think that is kind of why I felt like it felt natural to focus on water if I had to pick one kind of aspect of the environmental side.
Yeah. So what does your typical day look like?
Well, it varies by day. I unfortunately have a little more office time than I would like. But usually, it's getting into the office, it's checking email first thing, seeing if anything has happened. Right now, for example, I do have a construction project going on where we're building some wetlands. So we're restoring, we've got some cropland that we bought a while back, and it's a public cropland, and we are converting it to wetlands. So my day usually consists of, like I said, get into the office, check email, but then I go out and I look at that job site. I see how it's going, kind of how the wetlands are being built, if they're being built correctly and things like that. And then usually throughout the day, I have collaboration with partners. So we work a lot with partners, talking to them about maybe some grant opportunities or kind of different ways that we can work together to basically improve conservation on our ground. And then, you know, some days I even work with the public. So we get a lot of calls from the public and they have questions about what they can do on their properties to help water quality. So really it's just, I wear a lot of hats, which is fun. It makes it interesting. And sometimes I get out in the field, you know, go to check how projects are doing and stuff like that. But it's a little bit of everything, which is nice.
That's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. We love wetlands here. So
yes.
we're always stoked to hear about wetlands.
Yes.
So Amanda, you have dedicated most of your career to water quality, first with the Polk Soil and Water Conservation District, and then now, of course, with Polk County Conservation. What have you learned during your time working with water, and like how has that changed your perspective on what we can do to improve it?
Yeah, it's definitely changed a lot having, you know, kind of the real world experience now in water quality. I would say one of the biggest things I learned, and I kind of alluded to it already, is water really kind of acts like that canary in the coal mine. You know, like water quality or water as it runs through our system or our environment can really tell a lot about what's going on in the environment. So I like to equate it a lot to blood work in humans, you know, like we look at our blood and we get our blood tested and we see what the results are. And that can tell us a lot about how our organs are functioning or how different aspects of our bodies are working together to make us healthy. I think water is very similar in the environment, and I have seen that now. And so working through it and looking what is the nitrate levels, for example, or what are the chloride levels, you know, can tell a lot about what's going on the actual landscape itself. So is our soil health really good and it can hold those nutrients, or is it leaching a lot of those nutrients and the soil health isn't actually that good? So I think just really realizing that water quality and testing it really can give us an indicator of, again, that more holistic perspective about what's going on in the environment. I think one other thing that I definitely learned a lot more, especially being in working in Polk County, you know, such a heavy urban environment, is education and knowledge is, I think, lacking a lot more than we think. And so it's getting better with more stuff in the news and more people seeing and reading things. But I really think just a general knowledge about water quality is lacking. And then even more so what people can do about it. Yeah. So we all can play a part in water quality. And I just don't really think people always know what they can do. So I have learned that honestly, the education aspect is as important, if not more important, than actually doing the work to improve water quality.
Interesting.
Educating those on what they can do, because, you know, I work on public lands. We own 16,000 acres here in Polk County, but that's a drop in the bucket compared to what everyone else can do on their own properties. You know, everyone owns a little property or plays a role in society that they can influence water quality, and they do on a daily basis. So I think educating them on what they can do, maybe little things like, you know, don't mow your grass clippings into the street, like that can play a big role into water quality. Or that when water does go down storm drains, it doesn't get treated. It goes right to our creeks and streams and rivers. So a lot of people don't know that, surprisingly. And then I think youth as well, you know, a lot of our kids, instilling that importance of water quality, instilling ways they can live their life that really shape how water quality will be in our future. My perspective has completely changed on that, just how important education is in general to improve water quality, and not just the practices that we can put on the landscape.
Yeah, absolutely.
So interesting. So research and monitoring obviously play a critical role in what you do, and then also in improving water quality and the strategies that we implement. Are there any key findings that recently have changed your perspective?
I don't know if I can think of just one key finding. You know, I think throughout my time of doing different monitoring and stuff, I've just really realized that it's not a one size fits all in terms of like even the data we're getting from different creeks. They all are different, every single one. So we see different maybe impairments or different water quality issues in every single creek, even in Polk County. And it's greatly influenced by land use, what's going on around it. Heck, it's even influenced by the geology of the stream, you know, all the different things. And so I think that has really, it's not necessarily one data point or one thing that we've seen in water quality. It's more just the general realization that it's not a one size fits all. You got to really tailor what we're doing to improve water quality to each creek, where it's located on the landscape. You know, our practices or our conservation practices we use in urban areas are going to be vastly different than the things we do in agricultural areas. And so that to me has kind of been eye-opening. And then also creeks kind of tend to have their own normal. And so, you know, you see the data come through, and it may be, so we have one creek in Polk County that has high chloride all the time, all summer months, winter months, all the time.
Interesting.
And we're still trying to kind of get to the bottom of it. But when I look at that, it's not great that that's happening, of course, and we want to try to fix that, I guess, or try to get to the root cause of that. But in a way, that's normal now for that creek. And so it's how can we see those normals and then try to get them back to maybe more of our baseline normal, or what we want to see is better for ecology or the ecosystem. But then also teasing that out from like the really big red flags or something that's very abnormal for that creek. Another good example is at Chautauqua. You know, we see low dissolved oxygen. That's another water quality parameter that we measure, which is really important for ecological health. And we see low dissolved oxygen out there, and that's just because it's a slow moving water. That's just kind of normal for that stream. So those are some, I guess water quality data and monitoring has more influenced my thoughts on kind of the overall general how streams function, I guess. You know, they all just have their own normal, and you got to kind of tailor it for each stream based on that.
Yeah. To kind of continue, I think your analogy of water being sort of like the bloodstream in a human body, you know, all of us have different normal levels of cholesterol or insulin. And of course, there are like ranges that we try to be within. But I think it's really interesting that you have some pretty solid examples of how you can't just paint with a broad brush and look at the health of streams or water bodies in sort of this one-dimensional lens.
Right. And I mean, there are, of course, practices that fit everywhere. There are general things that we can do that is going to improve water quality across the landscape. But yeah, like you said, just like people, it's like every single person is influenced by the different environmental factors that they've been exposed to. Same with our creeks and streams, you know, and every single person's going to take another or a different approach to heal their bodies. Like we should be taking different approaches to heal each of our streams and rivers. But there, you know, of course, there's general things that we can all do that play a role too. But it's just getting to know those individual creeks and really seeing how they function and what's influencing them.
Yeah. So with that, I'm going to take us off script a little bit.
Yeah.
Are there any projects that you have going on right now or that have gone on in the past that you're like, okay, this is fantastic. I love this. Like, let's do more of these types of projects.
Yeah, I think the 4 Mile Creek Greenway is a huge project that we're working on that I think is making tremendous benefits. And I'd love to see more of it done throughout, especially the metro area and the urban area. So just a little background on the 4 Mile Creek Greenway. So 4 Mile Creek runs through the heart of Des Moines, heavily urbanized. I would say the lower portion is heavily urbanized. There are some ag influences on the northern portion as well. So it's kind of got your both of them there. But houses used to be built up right next to 4 Mile Creek. We saw a lot of unfortunate events where flooding happened and people lost their homes or people lost things inside their homes. So a lot of different agencies, City of Des Moines, Polk County Public Works, Polk County Conservation, you know, all the different entities, federal, state, local, came together and we put an effort in to offer buyouts to those individuals, and now we're restoring the Greenway. So we're hoping to restore the 500-year floodplain surrounding 4 Mile Creek. We're doing things like prairie restoration, woodland restoration, really trying to bring that area back to its natural look or feel, and then also allow flooding naturally because it's going to flood.
Right.
But we actually saw through data the influences that is happening. So Dr. Peter Levi, he was with Drake at the time, he did a study looking at whole stream metabolism, so kind of looking at the holistic health of 4 Mile Creek. He had a study point above where we're doing a lot of our Greenway work, so a lot of our restoration work, and then one below it. And he saw a huge improvement in whole stream metabolism. I mean, like stream health was tremendously improved just by doing those practices. So to me, that's something I think that can be huge in terms of stream restoration, water quality, and also honestly, like it's a huge public benefit too because it provides somewhere where people can go and recreate and be in nature in the middle of town.
Right.
We're also hoping to do some water access points through Icon and really getting people into 4 Mile Creek so they can experience it because it's just a cool creek in general. It has fish. I mean, it has big bass that you can get. It's really neat there. So I think pairing, we're doing a lot for water quality in 4 Mile Creek Greenway, but we're also doing a lot for the public. We're also bringing them in and giving them this area that they can love and enjoy and just get lost in nature in Des Moines. So I think that project is probably one of the coolest projects we're working on and is having a huge influence on water quality, but then also just people in general.
Yeah, I love that project. I use it a lot as an example, but you think of all the steps that had to happen to make that happen. There were some buyouts of some properties that had continuous flooding. There was significant cooperation with adjacent landowners. You had multiple jurisdictions and agencies coming together and then stacking the funding. But it starts to look like, listen, the way to make these big leaps in water quality improvement is through that holistic watershed approach.
Right.
And I had an elected official tell me that he grew up around that area. And he went just, I think it was maybe last summer, and he was like, the improvement, you can just see it in the water. I don't even need the data because you can see it in the water. It's such an inspiring story and approach.
Right. And I've had some of those exact same conversations with landowners who have lived down there for, generations. And they've noticed these differences. They've seen the differences. And not necessarily even just in general in water quality. They're seeing more wildlife use the area. They're seeing more people just want to use the area. And so I also think bringing in the 4 Mile Creek Greenway story also talks about the importance of education.
Right.
When we first went down there and we started planting prairie in the middle of Des Moines, right? You have people being like, what are you doing planting these weeds here? This looks very different than mowed turf grass. So then you start educating them. You start talking about the pollinators, the butterflies that are going to come visit this area, how important it is, the water quality, how these prairies are going to hold water on the landscape more than, and hopefully help 4 Mile from flooding as much. And now I go back, 5 years later, and I'm talking to some of these same people, and they're seeing it. They're believing it now. They're seeing the impacts of it, the positive impacts, and that's been really huge. And so just the education component down there as well. We're reaching a large audience and really seeing change have a ripple effect out. People wanting to do stuff on their own properties now because of what they're seeing in 4 Mile. And it gives me goosebumps, right? Thinking about the ripple effect that projects like that can happen or can have.
Yeah, the whole conversation from like, you're just planting weeds to, I'm seeing invasives in my prairie and I need to get out there is just like one of my favorite, conversions.
Right. Absolutely. Well, and you're getting at the stacked benefits too of some of these conservation practices. You mentioned wildlife, just this holistic picture of the ecology. I think that is such a interesting side effect of, again, back to your analogy of the waterways being the blood. If the health of one system gets better, the health of the entire system is going to improve, which I think is really interesting.
Right. And Right. And water quality, that's what it's going to take to improve water quality. We can't really improve the water quality by just working in the stream. We can't just work there with the water. We have to do things on the landscape in order to improve water quality. That's how we're going to get to those improvements. And so it really does take that more broader look of the whole watershed. I like how, Hannah, you mentioned the watershed approach, because I think looking at the whole watershed is important because, you can do everything you want right there, do stream restoration, really get some trees growing over the stream. And yes, that's going to improve stream health. But ultimately, to improve water quality, you're going to have to look at the whole watershed and hopefully try to make some big changes on the landscape in order to influence water quality and really make a difference, I guess, with that.
So this is like a very niche piece of information that was in Polk County's recent CISRA study, but it talked about the effect of the loss of trees and the shade coverage on the temperature of the water. And that's something I would never think about. Right. But that's when you look at it at scale, when you think about the way that Iowa's landscape used to look several hundred years ago, you're talking about like major difference in the health of the waterway.
Right. And yeah, temperature does play a huge role into water quality. It can, especially dissolved oxygen. So dissolved oxygen levels can get really low when the water gets too hot. And so that's big. And it's not even just trees. So when we look at streams that even have a buffer around them, so out in the areas that maybe aren't as heavily wooded, we see a difference. So water temperature can be influenced just because you have, especially, your smaller streams, you have your vegetation that's taller and it's kind of hanging over and shading it. So yeah, shade plays a huge role. And you can get that with prairie and with trees. So it's really a win-win if you can do both of those.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so talk to us about some of your favorite conservation mechanisms for like improving water quality. You've mentioned several in this episode, but let's get into that a little bit.
So I have two that really jump out. One of them is just buffering our streams. So anytime we can buffer our streams is huge. So even, it doesn't have to be woodland. It doesn't have to be a bunch of trees. It can just be prairie. It can be a diverse prairie with a whole bunch of different types of species, or it can just be one species or two species. It doesn't, just getting more permanent vegetation along our streams. You're going to see it filtering the water as it's running across the landscape, of course. But you're also going to see that shade factor. And then you're just going to see a variety of different diversity in terms of wildlife, different things coming towards the stream as well. It's also going to secure those stream banks a little bit better. And so stream bank erosion is a big problem with water quality. And our streams are really unstable here in Iowa. And so if we can kind of buffer those streams, slow water down as it's coming to it, and really hold those banks in place, we're going to see a tremendous improvement just from that. And it doesn't have to be super wide buffers either. We can still implement these in our current practices that we have. We can still build houses within a certain range. I really like using the floodplain as kind of that range of where buffers should be. It does get a little wider, of course, when the stream gets a little bigger. But that floodplain really allows the streams are going to naturally meander. And so it really allows that stream to move. It allows it to flood safely without putting people's houses in danger. And so I really like using that floodplain width as kind of where we want to try to see these buffers. And then we do farming outside of those. We continue to do some farming, and we maybe build houses right outside of those, and it creates this nice corridor that people can use. So that's one of my favorite ones. Another one is wetlands. I love wetlands. And I know you mentioned your guys' love for wetlands too. Wetlands just have so many benefits, and they were here. They belong on our landscape here in Iowa. We had, especially in central Iowa and in north of us here, we had the prairie potholes. So we had a ton of wetlands just scattered throughout our landscape, and you can see those in our ag fields, especially when you're driving by and you have these areas that are just wet. Right, they're consistently wet with our crops. That's likely where a wetland used to be. So they are supposed to be here. Wow. And they provide so many benefits. I mean, water quality benefits, of course. They really allow that water to sit there and nutrients to filter out. They provide tremendous wildlife habitat, especially for a lot of our migrating species. So our ducks and various waterfowl and things like that. So wetlands, and they're just neat to look at, right? Yeah. Like you go out there and they are. Yeah. And you go out there, especially in the morning time, and you see the sun coming up and you just kind of hear the wetland come alive. You can hear the frogs, you can hear the ducks, you can hear all those different things. I love wetlands, and I think there's a place. And I think even in our rural environment, where we're trying to do agriculture and conservation, you have these areas that are consistently wet, right? Like you're cropping them and maybe you're losing your crop every year. You're not getting a high yield on them. I think those are the areas that, hey, let's put a wetland there. Like we're not seeing a lot of benefit from the cropping side anyways. Let's put a wetland there. Let's let it do its thing. Let's let it filter out nutrients, provide water quality benefits. And then, okay, we can continue to farm in areas that maybe make a little more sense for farming. So yeah, those are two of my favorites. I think there's a lot of good ones, but those are definitely ones that jump to the top for me.
So you talked a little bit about it previously about, how important education was, and that there were a few things you wished more people knew. Can you expand on that? Like, is there something that you wanted to tell our humongous audience about water quality, or you wanted someone to know? What would those things be? What would one or two of those things be?
So I think kind of the big, and this is maybe just a big picture look of what I would love the public to realize is that, and I kind of alluded to it a little bit, but realize that everybody plays a role in water quality. So there's, I feel like sometimes we get caught up in pointing fingers, saying it's their fault water quality is this way, or it's their fault water quality is this way. We have all played a role in having water quality be where it is right now. So whether the foods we choose to eat, the way we choose to live our lives, the fertilizer we put on our lawn, the way we farm, every single person, the decisions they make daily impact water quality. So I think realizing that is a huge first step. And so I think that's what I would like the public to realize, is that they all have influenced water quality in all of our different facets of life. I've even made decisions, of course, that influenced water quality, and maybe some of them weren't always the best. And so I think that that's an important first step. And then I think secondly is realizing that you can do things, you don't just have to sit and feel like scared, because it is a big issue. You can do things on your own property. So rainscaping.org is a really good website for private individuals. But I think, I installed the rain barrel. To me, that's a big win for me. And it's like you install a rain barrel and it catches your water off your roof and you water your plants with it. You're using less treated water from Des Moines Water Works, of course. And then you're also improving water quality by catching some of that water and not allowing it to run off the landscape. So that to me is kind of a low-hanging fruit of something you can do. But there are other easy wins, right? Like planting a little prairie in your yard, or different things like that. So I think just realizing that, yes, we all played a role in water quality. It is what it is now. So maybe, let's stop arguing about it. Let's just now figure out, where do we go? What do we do? And there are a ton of things that we can do. Some of them are going to be a little harder than others. There are some that are a lot easier. But it's having that conversation, coming to the realization that we are where we are now. So let's figure out ways we can change it. Let's figure out ways we can move forward, and make it better for the next generation. And then I also think, one other thing I think I would like to relay to the public is water isn't scary. Get out there and play in it. So, it's like, you're not going to learn about water quality as much as you will if you can get out there and play in it. So go, if you have a creek in your backyard or you have a creek down the street, go play in it, go look at it, go feel it, touch it, let your kids play in it. And you're going to see the changes from water quality by being out there. So you're going to see the stream. Maybe there was a recent restoration out there and you're going to be able to see the animals start flocking to it, or the water quality be a little better after a rain. Maybe it won't be as dirty or muddy after a rain. So really just get out there and interact with it and realize it's not as scary as it may sound in the news. I think that's big.
Yeah, we live by a prairie and a stream, and we've lived there for about 10 years now. And I think to me, it's like we now can mark the seasons by what's blooming or not blooming in the prairie. You see, now we've been through flooding, droughts, and then a somewhat regular rain pattern. And you see the health year to year from that stream based on those and what's helping and what's not. So I agree that there's something so like grounding as well of being able to mark time and to observe the changes of the seasons and the weather pattern from a natural perspective and not just like off of the weather person on TV.
Right. I know. And it's honestly for like, mentally, it's amazing just to get out there, right? And like, we're, as humans, I firmly believe that we are meant to be in nature. Like that was, look back at our ancestral health, or the way our ancestors were. It's like they were immersed in nature. They were in tune with the seasons based on what they saw in nature. And then I look at my kids, I have two small young kids and they just want to be outside all the time. And I'm like, that is an innate desire from them to want to be outside. And so if I can foster that, if I can be like, yes, let's get outside all the time. There's a reason that their bodies want to be outside. And to be honest, they want to be around water. When they are throwing a tantrum or something, my first instinct is, okay, let's get them in the tub, right? Let's get them in water.
Exactly.
I mean, for real.
I do the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, or go take, right. Well, now you're like, go take a shower, right? Like, go take a shower,
Once you
calm
go
down.
outside, go for a walk and shower.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so it's like, I think that interaction with water and being in water is something that is innate in humans, and it's something we've lost, unfortunately, and it's because we've almost kind of removed our society from water by building dikes and next to streams, or really just kind of letting them overgrow, and so we can't even see the water. So I think mentally even, it's just such, when I go out there and I kayak in a river, right? Like, it's almost like you feel at home, you feel at peace. And I think it is that just innate nature in us that started when we were really little, and we just kind of have lost it throughout the way we live our lives. That can be huge, and that can really tie people back to water if we just keep getting people to water, interact with water, go see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a study a few years ago that if you are in a hospital room that has a view to water, you had a better rate of recovery and a quicker rate of recovery than someone that did not. And so I think that just, proves your point of it's innate that we need to be close to water.
Yeah, absolutely. That's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're there whether we take care of them or not.
Exactly.
So we should absolutely make the most of these natural resources that we have.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before we go into our last segment of the show, any final thoughts, Amanda or Hannah, on water ecology?
I think for me, it's just realize that all the systems are connected. It's all connected. Like we've been using the human body a lot as an example. And I think that's because our human bodies are a lot like nature. Everything is connected. Everything's going to influence one another. And the water quality is really what's there to kind of tell us how the environment is. So let's look at that. Let's focus on that. Let's try to make it better, and let's all work together to do it, because there's not one person that's going to make a change and it's all of a sudden going to be better. It's going to take all of us to do it.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Excellent. All right. Well, next to you have your handy dandy whiteboard, and we're going to close out today's episode as we always do with our segment called Let's Whiteboard It.
Okay. I'm a little nervous.
I know, it's so fun. So you can either write or draw your answer to this question.
Okay.
If in 10 years you were able, I guess I shouldn't even say in 10 years, if you were able to wave a magic wand and make a change about the way that we engage with our waterways, what would success look like? Like, what would that magical solution be?
All right.
Okay.
We are recording this on a Monday morning at 9 a.m.
Yeah, so keep that in mind. And keep in mind my drawing skills are not phenomenal.
And while Hannah and Amanda are wrapping up, just a reminder to like and subscribe wherever you are listening to this episode. We drop new episodes of the Happy Disruptors podcast every Thursday, so make sure to share this with someone you think would benefit from Amanda's amazing insights on local water ecology, and then follow along with what the Great Outdoors Foundation is doing on Facebook, Instagram, X, and LinkedIn. Gals, I want to give you plenty of time.
Okay, I'm done.
Okay, who would like to go first? Oh, Amanda's got a picture going on, which is amazing. So I feel like we need to start with her.
Okay. So I got a lot. Ignore my drawing skills. So what I think success would look like is you have an integrated system, right? So we have the creek running through here, the stream, or this is probably river because there's people. That's paddling, not surfing. Paddling on it. There's a lot of people interacting with the water. We have our buffer of trees, some grasses I should have drew in there. But then, we still have houses. We still have cropland up here. And we all just are kind of working in this integrated system. But you can't tell. Water quality is really great in this picture.
I kind of have the same thing. So I tried to do a stream, but my
beautiful.
point of view is
nice.
a little. But you got some farming going here. You have a buffer strip. You have people down here fishing. You have a fish here.
Yeah.
And then some trees and,
Birds.
You're stopping the erosion.
Yeah.
You got the sun.
Right. The sun's shining. It's a perfect day.
Yeah. Sunny and 80 degrees. Yes. Well, I did not draw it because it is 9 a.m. on a Monday, but I'm super impressed. We had a common theme here, just that conservation is integrated into all areas of life. So, I think about, Amanda, you even touched on the foods that we eat, like the way that we engage with the food system, the way that we engage with local agriculture, and the way that we manage our own behavior in a way that is productive for conservation. I think it takes those incremental wins in order to see change at scale. So
Yeah, it starts with our daily tasks, right? So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love the pictures. I'm really impressed for first thing on a Monday, to be honest.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Amanda, thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you all next time.
Yeah, thank you.